My parents loved me the best they knew how, but they had already endured so much suffering before I ever came on the scene. My dad came home from the Vietnam War very broken and suffering. He sought to drown out the pain and memories of war through alcohol, leaving him emotionally unavailable and distant from me and my brother. And as much as I loved him, I felt as though I never really knew him or was known by him. My mom battled depression, anger, and anxiety most of her life from the unspeakable emotional, sexual, and mental abuse she suffered at the hands of family members and friends as a child and young woman. She had so much unhealed pain and anger pent up inside that our home was filled with yelling, while she sought to control us the only way she knew how, through guilt and shame. This left my brother and I living in a constant state of fear, and we grew up believing we were unworthy and unlovable. I dealt with the pain of my childhood by running and leaving home at the age of 17 to attend college in Colorado and distancing myself from my family. I didn't think I was carrying unforgiveness and resentment in my heart, but me distancing myself from them was proof that I was. I heard the gospel and placed my trust in Christ many years ago in a small church in Lakewood, Colorado. I would remain part of this body of believers for 17 years until the pastor and his wife sold the church building and made plans to move out of state. It was then my husband at the time decided we would check out Grace, and we walked through the doors in June of 2007 to attend our first service. Before coming to Grace, I believed I could lose my salvation, and this was like living in a prison. My life was spent even after I'd heard the good news of how Jesus loved me and died for me, believing I was disappointing God and that I had to meet His standard of right living to remain in His grace to keep my salvation. I don't know how many calls I answered each Sunday at church to confess my sins, to be sure I remained right before Him. The anxiety and depression I faced daily because of this uncertainty kept me in bondage. It kept me focused inward on myself, on all that I was doing or not doing, all the ways I was failing Him. It made me believe that I was unfit to serve. Every week after service, I would hear the gospel, how Christ died for me to pay the penalty for all my sins, and by trusting in Him, I was going to heaven. I kept asking myself, I wonder why Pastor Rick shares after every service. Doesn't everyone know this? What I didn't realize was there was a piece of the gospel that I hadn't fully understood or embraced. So I'm coming to the weekend services week after week, hearing how Jesus died for all my sins, past, present, and future, and how nothing could pluck me from my Father's hands. And finally, this truth pierces my heart. And when it did, I was a prisoner no more. Jesus said He came to proclaim freedom to the captives, and I was set free. My heart was overwhelmed by this indescribable gift, and everything changed. I stopped worrying and fretting over all the ways I was falling short, realizing it was okay to admit I was powerless over my tendency to do the wrong thing. But I could still live a life that honored God by leaning into His power that now dwelled in me to live a life of purpose. I began serving and pouring my life into others as a love offering out of a heart of gratitude for this amazing gift of salvation that was free and irrevocable.
I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God.
Once I began to understand the depths of God's grace, it changed how I approached hurts and trauma in my life, and I earnestly wanted to forgive those who had hurt me. After all, if Jesus gave it all to pay for all my sins, forgives me of all the things I've done wrong and the pain I've caused others, how could I not freely offer that forgiveness to others? In 2009, my marriage of 20 years began to crumble, and I was faced with the deep pain of betrayal, abandonment, and rejection. I knew I wanted to forgive in the way God had forgiven me, but I didn't know how. It took time. It took crying out to God for help and saying it out loud over and over until it took hold in my heart and mind. It also took God opening up my heart to the story of my ex-husband, seeking to understand his hurts and upbringing, not to excuse his actions that hurt me and my children, but to allow me to see him through the eyes of God. I sit here today knowing I have fully forgiven him, and that set me free. And once I sought to understand my mom and dad's own heartbreaking story, my heart was filled with compassion, followed by forgiveness. My dad passed away many years ago, but my relationship with my mom is being restored day by day, and it's not because she has changed. It's because I have changed. I choose to understand her pain, her story, and love her just as she is. I now run home to love on her and thank her for loving me the best way she knew how, by spending time with her. My life has been transformed in so many more ways than I could possibly describe, and Grace is a place that truly offers hope for everyone and a home for anyone. I experience freedom and peace unlike I've ever known by embracing the gift of God's grace shared here. And I also found a home filled with the most loving and wonderful people who have supported and loved me from the day I walked through these doors. And today, my great joy in my role as the pastor of Grow and Serve and ministry leader for Celebrate Recovery is to provide pathways for everyone to discover hope, receive support, and experience community to grow and heal. Through our Christian Ed classes, support classes and groups, Celebrate Recovery, and more, everyone is introduced to the saving message of the gospel. They're given a community of people to share life with, tools to process and recover from their pain, and set free to live for the purposes of God. And now God is doing more than we could ever imagine or dream with the opening of the Center for Hope on the Carr Street campus. I am so grateful God has made a way for Grace to continue to be a beacon of light in our community and be an instrument in transforming more lives just like mine.